Started.
All right.
Did everybody get a handout? Okay. All right, great. Well, I want to welcome you all to the SSP project on qualitative research and using software. We're going to focus on Atlas.ti today. We're lucky enough to have Ronald Shope with us here today. He's a research associate professor here at UNL and teaches distance classes in research methods, including foundations of educational research, qualitative research, survey research, and mixed methods. He's also a research associate in the Office of Qualitative and Mixed Methods Research. I'm sure many of you know about that office. And then he also is the qualitative consultant for the NEAR Center, which is over at the cycles. In addition, he's also a professor of communication and research and is director of assessment and institutional research at Grace University up in Omaha. So he actually traveled here from Omaha, which some of you may know he couldn't make his prior arrangement because of snow, and so we thought April is safe as could be. However, there is snow today, so it's impossible. Unless we have this in July, I think we can't do anything about it. But he's done lots of research in the areas of qualitative and mixed methods and things, and so I think he'll be great at telling us a little bit about the Atlas.ti world. So,
all right. Well, it's great to be here with you all. Please, during the presentation, ask questions. Okay, we'll try to cover as much as we can, but basically what we're going to look at today is really scratch the surface of a piece of software that I use in my own work, and that's Atlas.ti. Let me say some things generally about qualitative software before we begin. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, my slide presentation basically takes you through the steps of how you analyze qualitative data and what some of that looks like using software. And we're going to do that first. And then what I'm going to actually do is on my laptop, I actually have a copy of Atlas running. And you can kind of see how this works live. With a data set. Now, my caveat here is the data set that I'm going to show you is actually put together for this presentation. It's not a data, part of it comes from data that I have worked on, but I want to show you how flexible Atlas really is. And so I've sort of put together a mock data set so that at least you can see some of the features of what Atlas does. Okay. Now, qualitative software is a lot different from using quantitative software. How many of you have used like SPSS or SAS? Okay, you've all used that, and so have I. And you know that what we do is we put the data in. So we create the data set, we have our variable list, our code tables, and then we decide what statistical tests are we going to run. So if I say, well, I really want to take a look at the differences in means, and so I might use t-test, or I might use an ANOVA or something like that. And what I do is I go ahead and I select the variables and select any differences in confidence intervals, run that all, and it tells me first of all what the t-number is. If I'm running a t-test, it tells me about variances as far as whether they're equal and equal, and it tells me if it's significant. And basically I have my answer as to is there a significant difference between these two means? Well, not quite that easy in qualitative. What qualitative software does, qualitative software helps you manage your data. That's the key. The reason you use software is to help you manage the data. Now, the interesting thing is I could get a very large quantitative data set on, a floppy disk, some very small storage medium, because data files are very small. A qualitative data set, however, could be as much as 2,000 pages of text. It could be videos. It could be images. It could be audio tape. And there's a lot, it's very, very dense, and there's a lot of it. And the problem is what we have to do is we have to be able to manage it. And that's what the software does. Unfortunately, actually, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there is not a program out there that, like SPSS, I bring the documents in, and I hit a button and ask it to code, and it codes the whole thing, and now I have my code list and themes and everything like that, and everybody's happy. Qualitative research is very different in that the researcher is very much a part of this process. Okay? You are the one who manages the analysis. And so the software doesn't manage it, it just helps you to keep track of the data and set up the type of analysis. For example, if you were doing an ethnography and you were asking and you were looking at issues related to culture, there are analysis techniques that are used in the ethnographic approach. There's coding and there's themes, but there are also things like domain analysis that Spradley uses. And the problem is that unless you are familiar with how you analyze that data, the software is not going to be of much help, because the first thing you have to do is you have to understand the analysis of how to do an ethnographic analysis. And once you understand that, what the software will do then is the software will actually help you manage elements of that. It provides a way to help you memo your thoughts so you can remember things, or visualize various concepts, or keep track of lists of codes so you don't have to do it on paper. And you have these little sticky notes all over the place. Everything is neatly packaged in one place, and the nice thing about it is you can print it all out. And you can have a hard copy. If somebody wants to see, well, how did you code the document? You can actually print it all out with the codes. You can print your code lists. You can, I've set up a Spradley domain analysis. Now, it doesn't tell me in the Atlas.ti manual. Now, this is how you set it up. What you have to do is whatever package you choose. And by the way, there are several other packages. There was a presentation on NVivo, for example. I'm doing one Atlas. There's another one called MAXqda. There are several of them that are out there. One called HyperResearch. They basically all do the same things. Some have different features than others. But pretty much what you have to do is, first of all, once you understand the qualitative approach, then you begin to learn the software and say, how can I do that? How can I do this analysis with the software? I'm going to show you, I have some screenshots in your example, which is why when you look at the screenshots and look at the data set, this has been constructed for this presentation. Okay, so don't think, oh, this is a grounded theory study. No, I have a grounded theory model because I want to show you how you can do this and show you that you can do this. So pretty much what you see, I'm trying to give you an overview of the features. So bottom line, you are in control of the analysis. The software is not. A lot of people don't like to use software because it's like, well, but you're limited. No, you're not. You think through how do you do this and what features of the software are there that helps me do it. And I happen to like Atlas for a number of very personal reasons, because I like the way that the Atlas screen looks. Looks very much like if I did this by hand. It's very easy, I think, to use. And any piece of software, when I started using software, probably about now, oh man, it's probably about 6-7 years ago now, I invested a lot of personal time before I actually started to do my project in learning how to use it. So don't think you can kind of sit down in a half hour, you're all set to go. Atlas has a very good tutorial. Okay? I also encourage you that once you've kind of gone through the tutorial, load some of your data in. Just play around with it until you really understand and are comfortable, and your time spent on work is going to be a lot more productive. But you can't just sit down and just in a short amount of time learn this. You have to invest the time. Now once you do, you're going to find out that you're going to be a whole lot more productive. And so the learning curve, in my opinion, once you've spent the time, is not really too bad. And I'll show you once we get into the software part of what I like about the way that Atlas does things. Okay? Now, you know, I also tell you before we get started that these packages also have websites. I'm going to show you the Atlas website in just a minute. And each of them have try before you buy. Atlas has a fully functioning downloadable version of it. Now, it's version 5.2. I happen to use 5.0 right now, which is what I'm using right now. There are some limitations in that you can only load in something like 10 documents and create, there's a limited amount of codes, but that's okay, a limited amount of quotes. The idea is that you can actually play with this and use it. Now you can create several little projects and just kind of try it out so that you can say, I don't like this. Well, then go try NVivo. See if you like that one. There's a way to get a demo. MAXqda. Some of the demos are fully working versions, but they're good. They work for like 30 days. So read the instructions when you download it because it'll tell you what the limitations are. All right. So that's kind of my little thoughts about using software. I found out I was working on something, and I did go back for a little bit to paper. And when I say paper, I have a tablet PC, and so I actually coded it with my tablet on my screen. You know what? I didn't like it. I didn't like using paper. I did part of my analysis that way, and I did part of my analysis. There's a reason I didn't use paper. But I did part of it using Atlas, and I felt like what I did with Atlas was so much better quality than what I did using paper. Now, my little caveat is this: when I teach a class in qualitative, if you've not done qualitative, it is good to use paper first. And the reason is you need to learn how to do generally good qualitative analysis. Not that you're familiar with all the approaches, but you know how to code data, you know how to memo, you know how to do themes, you've done it with paper. And so concentrate on one skill first. Concentrate on learning the analysis approach first. Once you understand it, then begin learning the software and how you can use the software to help you to get to where you want to go, okay? So paper is always a good time, and my students, once they start learning the software, they say, oh, why didn't we do this before? So well, you wouldn't appreciate what this can do. All right, so now, let's see where the mouse went. There it is. I'm going to take you briefly to, this is the Atlas.ti website. It's basically www.atlas.ti.com. Okay? And Atlas has a nice website. Atlas has nice support. I have emailed back and forth with Thomas Moore, who is the developer. This, by the way, is a German product. The two really good well, actually the three products, the three of the products that are, I consider good products that are on the market are, two of them are German, one's Australian, which is QSR, and then there is an American product. Actually, there's an American product called HyperResearch. There's also another American one called Ethnograph, which is supposed to come out with a new update. It's been in 5.0 for a long time. So that was actually one of the first ones, and that's an American product. HyperResearch, by the way, if you are a Mac person, HyperResearch is the only native Mac product. You can use these products, but you have to run virtual PC on a Mac if you want to use Mac. HyperResearch has a native Mac version. Actually, it was developed by a person who liked Macs. And the person that really came up with it was done for teaching purposes. So, but what you can do is you can actually go and here's the downloads page. I won't spend too much time here. There's the free trial. The other thing that you can do is you can download the manual. The manual is in PDF format. And if you decide you want to print the 400-page manual, you can go ahead and print it. I use it online. It is completely searchable. And with a high-speed internet connection, or download it to your hard drive and then bring it up and search it. So I don't really find any use in printing it, because in that way I don't have to carry it around with me in case and I do go to the manual, and it's really well done. And so you also can, if you want to, suppose that you decide, oh, I like this product, I downloaded the demo, am I going to lose any data if I go to the real product? And you won't. Actually, you can download a license code, and it will unlock, or at least will actually then take away the limitations that are on the demo version. So you can actually buy this product from the web. If you buy it from the web, you will not get a CD or anything like that with it. You have the web version. They're also very good at providing updates. It's almost like Windows updates, and they will have updates, service pack updates, and things like that. The other thing is that Atlas is coming out with a new version soon, 6.0, and one of the things that they did when they upgraded from 4.2 to 5.0 is they provided some incentives for people that bought the old version within a couple of months of the new one coming out, and they were able to do an upgrade to the brand new one. So they're very good at really sort of keeping up to date. The other thing is that there is an Atlas support group that's online that actually, what I found out is Thomas Moore, the developer, monitors and many times will answer questions. So, yes?
So what are the costs of the various software? I think you mentioned 4 of them. I catch 3 of them. What's the second one?
Okay. Atlas.ti, and I can't speak for the other 2. I do know what the Atlas price is. Atlas has a graduate or has a student price. Now there's some documentation you have to provide that you're a real student at a real place. But I think the student version you must order from Atlas, from the website, or actually through other means from the company. There are resellers in the United States, one of which is Research Talk on Long Island, New York, but they cannot sell you the student version. It's $187. Now, that's the price of the SPSS graduate student version.
And the other thing to mention is this lab in here also has Atlas available, as well as the other qualitative packages.
Yes.
So you're welcome to use
yes.
the lab here too.
And my suggestion is if you're going to use the lab, what I would do is go out and buy a large flash drive, or a portable USB drive. Then what you can do is you can load your data all on that and carry it around with you, so that when you come to the lab, because there is no way to do any storage in here, I don't think, right? You can use the USB ports, but there's no way to do storage. So what I would do is I would keep all my data and my stored Atlas.ti project on that drive, and then when you're done, carry it away when you come back. So, and those things are really coming down. I know a group right now out on East Campus had got like either a 1 or a 4 gig drive, something like that, and they've got a fairly nice project, and they're just, because they want to be able to use it on several computers.
So can I remote access from my office to the computer here?
I don't think so.
No, you have to use it in here.
Yep, that's the thing about that. All right, let's talk about, I'm going to take you quickly through the PowerPoint slides because I really kind of want to take some time and show you the product. Feel free to ask questions. Basically, I'm going to review the major steps in analysis. These are general steps. In any qualitative approach, you will actually go through these steps. Then there are several specialized analysis procedures associated with grounded theory and phenomenology and ethnography. I'm not going to get into those, but I'm going to basically give you what are the common elements to all the approaches that you will use. Okay? So the first thing you do is you have to prepare your data for analysis. If you do interviews, for example, you want to transcribe those interviews from audio tape to documents. Now, one of the things that I would suggest is when you save the documents, save them in what's called .rtf, rich text format. Atlas will read native Word documents. So if you save it in Word, you can import it directly to Atlas. However, you can't edit it. And I came upon that. I had forgotten that step in something I just recently did. Saw a misspelled word, and I had coded the document. And so I can't go edit it. And actually, wouldn't you know that one of the words that I misspelled was a word I wanted to use for code, and I couldn't do it. I basically still ended up using it, but I spelled it correctly. But it's still misspelled in the document. So when I bring it in for a quote, if I decide to use it for a quote, I'm going to have to change it. .rtf. If you put it .rtf, Atlas has a way to edit it. So if you find out, oops, I misspelled this word, no problem, you can edit it. Okay? If you're doing field notes, if you're out doing observations, again, make rich text format documents out of those. Okay? So in Atlas, all you do, save the documents in rich text format. Now, save in a specific place. The default for Atlas is called the text bank. You do not. So when you click, when you try to open a document, it will look there first. You do not have to save them in the text bank. But, and this is a big one, decide on a place that you want to keep them and don't move them. Because here's the nice feature about Atlas. What Atlas will do, and this is unlike some of the other packages, Atlas will load your project and one document into memory at a time. I'll tell you why that's an advantage. It makes your computer run a whole lot faster. Suppose you have 20 interviews. I knew somebody that used one of the other packages, and it kept crashing. Why? Because it not only loaded the project in, but all 20 interviews in at once. Now when I say interviews, you're figuring 20 to 25 pages of text per interview. If trying to remember all of that, plus everything that she's coded and things like that. Computer crashed. Atlas makes links to each one of those documents. So wherever you save it, whenever you say, I want this interview, Atlas has a list of links. It goes out and looks for that and brings it in. You'll have a list of them all. It looks like they're all loaded in, but only the links are loaded. That's why Atlas can run fairly quickly and doesn't take as much memory when you have larger project. But I had a graduate student who called me frantically on a Sunday afternoon and said, I think I lost my codes. I said, no, you didn't lose them. I said, did you move your documents? Well, come to think of it, I created a new folder and moved them all there. I said, Atlas doesn't know where they are. So we quickly found them, restored them, and everything was great. And all the codes were always there. It's just Atlas had to know where it was. Okay? So, if you think that you are going to use this on multiple computers, put it on some kind of a portable drive so you can take it there and everything is right there. It always knows it's there. Alright? Now, the next thing you do is you open a new hermeneutic unit. Now, don't get hung up on Atlas's terms. Hermeneutic just basically means interpretation, so it's just a project. That's what they call it. What's a hermeneutic unit? It's a project. Alright? You select the documents from the Assign menu, and I'll show you how this is done in just a minute. And then basically locate the documents. And by the way, you can load multiple documents. So let's say you have 20 interviews. Select the first one, hold the Control key down, and then just select every one of them. And then hit Open, and Atlas brings them all in at once. One time to that folder, brings them all in, and then it has created all 20 of those links. So they're imported at once. And here's a screenshot. This is what it looks like. By the way, if you don't like the background with the little fish, you can change it. It's fully customizable. So you don't have to worry about, I need that background. No problem. You can put whatever you want there. So there's preferences, and the manual tells you how you can change all that stuff. You can do all kinds of things with it to make it look like you want to. I just never do that. So, but this is what it's like. You assign the document, and then right there, select them, and bring the document into the project. The next thing you do in analysis is you explore the data. So the first thing that you do, before you do any coding, is you read through the documents. Now you can do that now online, instead of having all printed copies. I do suggest one thing though, folks, that I didn't mention. I suggest making sure that you do not keep your original documents on that drive that you're working on, that you actually, I always make a copy of all my original documents on some kind of indestructible media, like a CD. And I put that away. Hard drives have a nasty way of crashing when you don't want them to. And so what you don't want to do is have this thing crash on you, and now your originals are gone. Okay? So at least try to keep your documents, and one of the things you can do too, and I'm not going to go into this, but at various stages you can actually export your entire project, all the coding and everything like that. If you're doing a huge project, I always recommend exporting it and putting it on some kind of indestructible media. So at least what you can do is, if something crashes, you can import it back into Atlas after you get it all back. And the worst thing you're going to have to do is maybe reinstall links. But at least you don't lose it. So, you read through all the data. You also memo your ideas. You write your thoughts. I always just say, this is an interesting interview, this is about such and such, and a few little thoughts to at least get the analysis process starting. Again, there's a procedure for doing it for Atlas. I'm not going to go through all these procedures. A slide set will at least help you to see. So it's a little introduction to, if you decide to use the program, this is what you do. But you can basically select what's called document view. You can memo your initial ideas, write them down, and basically, if you're doing qualitative research, the nice thing is too, how did you analyze the data? You can keep a little running memo. Well, I did this, I did this, I did this. And you know what's cool then? Once you're all done with that, you can copy it and paste it into your Word document that you're writing the paper from. Atlas is completely compatible with Windows. You can copy any of the Windows clipboard and put it in, which means that you do not need to type quotes again. Highlight it just like you would any other word processing document. Select it, boom, paste it right into Word. You might have to do a little format cleanup, but basically you're not copying it all over. So, this is what I do. I select the document, read it, make a little comment. This is too small. It says this is the document comment box. So basically I have comments, and I might say this interview was done with Shirley Jones. She was a 5th grade teacher at such and such middle school, and just give me a little, and you know, she really kind of, the focus of the interview seems to be such and such, and so I at least have some comments. Atlas retains those, and you can print them all out if you want to print out a list. Then I begin coding. The process of basically segmenting and assigning code labels. And here's what you do when you code. The easiest way to code is you read the segment, ask yourself the question, what is the underlying meaning of this passage? So what is the individual talking about? And that's what you do. And you highlight a sentence or you highlight a paragraph. I start with a sentence, and I look at the next sentence, is it about the same thing? And so I might highlight a paragraph, this is about this. And I assign it a 1, 2, or 3-letter or 3-word code, okay? And then what I can do is once I start to build up a code list, what I can do with Atlas, oh, I've used that code before. Select the code, bring it back over, drag and drop, so you're not always creating codes. You're going to create the most codes on your first 1 or 2 documents, and then you're going to start to back off a little bit. Normally, in a good data set, you're probably going to be not have any more than about 40 codes or so. Maybe 60. Some people say 30 to 40. I will go as high as 40 to 60, but you're not going to have, if you have 500 codes, you're going to have a mess and you have no idea what you have. Okay? So it's always that, and then when I start thinking, I need a code for this, and I think through, is this something I've already coded? Is this related to another idea? Qualitative takes a long time. Okay? And so you'll take those codes and then you will basically begin to trim them down and create themes. And here's how we create a new code. Open coding, which means that what I'm doing is I'm creating new code, and I highlighted the text, and then I can basically bring it over and code. So there, I create a code called time schedule, and you notice it brackets it out. Now, if you do qualitative data analysis on paper, this is exactly the way your page would look. It's got the bracket. Now, can I code a passage twice? Yes, I can. Atlas will put it in different color. I usually put it in red to show it's been multiple coded. Now, if you are, what I've done for doing a domain analysis in ethnography, for example, I'm looking at the verbs, I'm looking at the nouns, and so several lines may be coded a number of different times, and the only reason is because I'm looking at verbs, I'm looking at nouns, I'm deciding what words sort of cluster together. That's getting the software to do what you want it to do. Okay? When we create a theme, we take the codes down and we say, what are the bigger ideas? So now we have all these code words. And we say we want to take these ideas, we want to take these codes and gather them together in larger ideas. And then we're going to take these larger ideas and we're going to draw them together as an analysis and see how they go together to explain, the phenomena that we're looking at. Okay? So what we do is we begin now to say, what are the codes which really seem like they're talking about one larger idea? And then we say, what is that idea? And that's our theme. And the codes become the support for our theme. And what are the codes based on? What the participants said. We start with the quote. What are they saying? Generate the code. Take several codes, put them together to a theme. And we support that theme and talk about that theme in terms of those codes and those smaller ideas. Now, one way to do that, Atlas has a tool called the Family Manager. See, Atlas likes families. It's groups of people, or now, in this case, codes, together with now one name. And so you create what's called a new code family. And I'll show you how to show you this in just a minute. Okay? And what we do is we have our existing codes, and we now can bring them all together and we create one big family. Now here's the cool thing you can do with Atlas, which I won't have time to show you today. One of the things you can do with all these packages is you can search. So how many times is the word depression used in this document? I can search. How many times is the word food used? I can search. Well, maybe what I want to search for is I want to search for terms that are related to my code family. I can create what's called a super code. And I can take that family and use it as a code and begin searching for related ideas. Now the cool thing about the Atlas search that is not present in some of the other packages. So if I go to N7 and I do a search, suppose that I have coded half of my documents and I'm seeing some ideas, and I thought, I wonder if this term is occurring someplace else. So I go ahead and I search. And I get a list of quotations and I see where it is. Then I continue to go through the other documents. If I want to include what I've done after the search, I have to do that search again. Atlas, what happens is, if I save the search, it will dynamically update so that every time that happens, boom, that gets added to my list each and every time. Again, these are very powerful search features that aren't available in other places. Okay? So again, here's the code family box. And here are my codes. And I can bring these codes over here and I'm creating a family called challenging. That's going to become a theme. Alright? Then what happens is, then I begin to think about my design and I say, alright, now I've created my codes, I've created some themes, and now what I do is I begin to think about my specific design. And so what I do now is I refine my coding scheme just a little bit. So I'm looking now possibly for, if I'm doing grounded theory, I'm looking now and thinking about, grounded theory. There are causes. There are outcomes. There are strategies if you're using Strauss and Corbin, for example. Or if you're doing a case study, I'm fairly well set up. Well, I have descriptions, or I have themes. And I begin now, as I've created some themes, to begin to refine it just a little bit to do that. Okay? For example, case studies. I might have theme 1, 2, 3. So as I create my family, there are my themes. If I have grounded theory, I might have causes. This is why it's sort of grayed out there, but not easy to see. Core categories and things like that is the grounded theory model. I can now visualize all of that in what's called a network diagram. I like working with pictures. Many times when I do analysis, I want to see how it looks. And so what I can do with Atlas is I can begin to draw pictures. And I can not only draw a picture, but I can also begin to explain some of the relationships. So this is grounded theory. Causes. Is a cause of this core phenomenon, whatever it is. The strategies are associated with this core phenomenon, as well as the contexts are associated with strategies. What I'm doing is beginning to tell the story about how does this go together. If I'm doing an ethnographic study, Spradley basically says that there are 9 universal semantic relationships between terms. I can actually spell those out. And I can basically say this and this and this is a cause of this. By the way, these little text passages are completely customizable. I can create as many new ones as I want to. So I can go in and say, well, there's nothing here that explains this, then create one. This helps you to visualize. Now, one thing. If I say causes, what are the quotes that relate to that? I double click on causes and you know what will happen? A little box will come down, here's all the quotations. I click on a quote and it'll take me right back to the text. I'm never more than just a couple of clicks away from the text. A good qualitative researcher wants to know, so what was the context of that statement? A problem I can get to. With just a couple of clicks, yeah.
So is the diagram automatically generated by the system, or you have to draw it yourself?
You can do both. If you create a code family, you can actually press a little icon, and this is a little icon. Let's see, is there a laser pointer built into this one? No, there's not. No, that's all right. Right here, that little icon up there is basically called network. Click on it. What happens if you're in code families, like we were on the last screen? See, right here it is again. That little icon. If I highlight theme 1, click on that. Guess what? It gives me the diagram. Now, the only problem with that, it's a little less flexible because what it does is it creates some fairly hard links. But here's what I can do. I can take my list of codes and I can create any kind of diagram I want to. And so if I say, well, you know what, I really think this idea and this idea and this idea goes together. I just keep dragging and dropping codes into the diagram, and then I say, now I think this goes with this, and this goes with this, and this goes with this, and this is the way they're connected, and I can draw this myself. So you can do both. I prefer to draw it myself because then it helps me to think through the analysis. Oh, and the other thing that I can do with this too, I can also attach a memo to it. So I can basically say, now let me explain. Let me write a little memo to myself so I can remember how this thing works. And I can create a little memo. And I memo all the time. I'm always writing things because I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget how I've thought through this. Now sometimes I'll contradict my memos and say, you know what, I thought it was this, but no, it's this really kind of now that's going on. And I'll sort of build that analysis. And when I'm all done, what I can do is take my memos, I can print them all out, I can read them if I want to print them out and read them all at once, I can read them on the screen, and I can begin to sort of get a sense of all my analysis. Actually, I can make a diagram like this one, made with memos. And if I have a chance, I'll show you one that I made. Now, I don't have it complete yet, it doesn't have all the connections, but I'll show you that you can take memos that you write, and you can have the actual text on the screen. So you can begin to see what this thing looks like. And that helps you to visualize the analysis. So, basically then, the other thing that I can do, what about quantitative data? Well, you know what? I can sort my data according to various demographic variables. I might want to say, you know, I'm wondering if there's a difference between how men and women talk about this. what codes are present in men that might be different from women? Well, what I can do, and I don't have time to show you today, I can take my list and I can basically say, let's say that I have 10 interviews, and all the even numbered interviews were men, the odd numbered interviews were women. I can tell Atlas I only want to see the male interviews, and it'll filter all the codes by the men, and all it gets a list of codes for men. And I can actually print that list out, or I can also take a table. And if I know that, which ones are which, I can actually take a table, and I can take a table and export it to an Excel spreadsheet, to SPSS. I can bring this into SPSS and do a chi-square based on codes and find out, is there a difference between how men talk about this and women talk about this? I'm going to do a chi-square and find out. 2 by 2, they talk about it 20 times, they talk about it 15 times, is there a significant difference? Oh, now we're back in the quantitative realm. And there's a table. Again, here's my primary documents. How do I know what 1 through 6 is? I keep a list. I know what they are, so that when I export it, I can export it this way. I can create an Excel spreadsheet. You want to use Excel? Use an Excel spreadsheet, put variable names at the top, import it to SPSS, or you can do a direct SPSS export to an SPSS data sheet that imports in. I don't know, none of the other software packages do that. This is the only one where you can actually directly export numeric data like this directly into an SPSS readable file without going through like Excel. Now one of the nice things, Excel, really, SPSS reads Excel very well. I always use Excel, especially, I'm having somebody else put in data for me. I create an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody knows Excel. I set it up the way I want it, let them go put the data in, and not worry about inputting it into SPSS. Then I write up my report. I describe my analysis procedures. I can keep software helps me keep a record of the major steps. When I write it up, I can take all my memos and import them right into my document, organizing my findings. Again, I can use my major codes as headings. The software helps me to keep track of those. Multiple perspectives. I can retrieve coded segments. And so I can describe the different perspectives that have emerged. And my software helps me to be able to see those. I can use quotes. I keep quotes in the little comment boxes that are available. So that, oh, this is a great quote. They talked about it this way. I want to remember it. I can put it in a memo, but I can put it in a comment box. And then when that code comes up, ooh, this was the great quote. Highlight it, put it right into my document. And basically, I keep my Word, when I'm writing up in Word, you know what I'll do? I'll keep Atlas open. I'll keep it open for 2 reasons. One, so I can drag and drop quotes. But the other reason is, as a qualitative researcher, and another qualitative researcher, this statement's not original with me, it's a great word of wisdom, but qualitative analysis does not end until the final period is put on the report. That's when it ends. As I'm writing my report, I'm constantly going back, people, is that really is that an accurate reflection? I'll go back and just say, you know, I probably want to say it this way because, and so I'm back and forth. I'm still doing analysis. When does it end? When I put that final period and say, this thing got to go out the door. It's the best I can do. Okay? I have known people that have overanalyzed and overanalyzed and they don't get done. You finally have to say, this is good. It's a good reflection. Hey, there's more here, yeah. But that's for another time. Okay? Now, let's go over to the second computer. I'm going to show you real quick what Atlas looks like. again, this is sort of a made-up data set. Okay? But part of what I want to show you is I want to show you a few things that Atlas can do. Atlas is probably one of the most robust in terms of the qualitative software packages, because Atlas, HyperResearch will allow you to do this too. Atlas will allow you to import not only text, but also pictures, which many of them will do. But Atlas and HyperResearch are one of the few that will let you bring in video. If you're thinking about doing video, I've got some suggestions for you. Feel free to contact me. I've done video work. But that's one thing I want to show you what this looks like, because you can actually code a video just like you can code a text. I won't be able to show you the whole thing, but I'll at least show you what this looks like and how you can bring in this type of document. So I have everything in here except there is one thing that I want to bring in, and that's the video. And so to assign a document to this project, I'm going to assign it. Now, see text bank? I don't have it stored in text bank. Okay, I happen to have this particular document stored on my desktop, and basically, now this is a video of me. So, and part of the reason I'm using it is it loads fast and it's very small and won't take long for us to look at. Okay, so lest you think, how come Shope chose that one? It's just for demonstration purposes only. Unless somebody can, as a linguist, can find some kind of unique things in it, you want to look at how I've said something for some of the shots, but that's why I did what I did. All right, now, right now there's no documents loaded into the documents are all in the project. None's loaded into, none we can analyze yet because I haven't brought one in. So, all these are .rtf documents. Let's bring in, this is a focus group interview. I'm going to just basically bring this one in, and I have already created some codes. There's some codes that I have created. Now I keep my code list open, just like this. It's right over here. I can see it. By the way, I can scale this window any way I want to, so if I want to scale it and go smaller like that, I can do that. However you want to do this. You can also get rid of this little nasty thing. And by the way, if you get frustrated, Atlas has a panic button. So this little thing right here, it basically will, there's a little frustration, let's see. The little man says, I hate computers, so. Alright. Now, let's code this. Obviously, I don't want to code my question. Okay. My question was, by the way, this was a school that had gone before a school week. And we were trying to find out, so how do the faculty and students feel about this? Okay? So, first sentence, he says, I asked, so who'd like to start? Sure, I think it's gone very well. I know that, by the way, you notice the transcript has all the ums and ahs. That's an accurate record of actually how it sounded. You want to do that. Do not clean it up, including your questions. Do not make yourself look great. If you did ums and ahs, well, just live with it. I think now, when you quote it, you don't keep those in there. You do clean it up. But for the record, for your notes, your transcription, it needs to be an accurate transcription. If the phone rings, phone rings. If you turn the tape recorder off because they're having a phone conference, turn tape recorder off. I did an interview. I had to do an interview one time in just recently in two stages. One day and the other day. Why? Because we weren't quite done and this person had to go to a meeting and we had gotten interrupted by the telephone. So my transcript is all together. It's the interview, but basically there was a note. This interview was done in 2 stages. It was done at this time, this day at this time, and this day at this time due to schedule conflicts and interruptions. Why do I need that? Because that's a faithful record of what happened. And what will happen is that you go down through the first part, and I'll have interview part 1, boom, And then a break, interview, part 2. That shows us where that is. When did we talk about this? On day 1 or day 2? So, now the coding, sure, I think it's gone very well. I think the students enjoy the extra day and the flexibility of it. I think the parents seem to enjoy having their students help them on the farms, or what have you. What is this person talking about? In other words, what's sort of the big idea here? What's 1 or 2, no more than 3 words to describe what's going on? Silence.
Convenience or flexibility?
I think I like flexibility. Who used the word flexibility? This person did, right? In qualitative research, we call that NVivo code. So if somebody says, well, where did you get these words? Who said flexibility? He did. Whose story are we telling? Their story. It speaks to the validity. Anytime that you can use a code or a theme that uses the exact words of the participants, you should try to do it. It's called an NVivo code. Okay? Now, on my code list, I don't have the word flexibility, do I? I have to create it. Very easy. Right-click. Coding. Open coding. If I can spell it right. And there it is. And it's added to my list. So, the only area that I think might be causing some problems maybe are the teachers being a little behind in what they're teaching, and I don't know if it's from the 4-day week or other areas. I mean, it could be the hour-long classes rather than having blocked. So you see how people, by the way, talk this way? And if you listen to yourself, this is how you talk. So it's like, this guy doesn't sound intelligent. He is, just the way we all talk. So, what's he talking about there? Do we have a code that might relate to what he's talking about? It could be problems, although that's fairly big. That's fairly broad. What about the time schedule? You know, the teachers, it's the 4-day week. He says, I don't know if it's from the 4-day week, or it could be going back to the hour-long classes, talking about the time of the classes. Do we have a code that talks about time schedule? We do. I don't have to create it. I go over here and I grab it. I just drag it right there. There it is. Now, by the way, you see, why is it in red? Well, we overlap this line just a little bit, you see. So, because we've got the that's okay. But time schedule. Now, I'm not going to show you any more coding, but that's how easy it is. And you just keep going, coding your document with your headsets on. Now if I say, oh, you know what? This is an interesting idea, time schedule. I like this quote. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to select this. The only area might be maybe with the teachers being behind in what they're teaching. Let's say I want to just select that part of it. I like that. All I do is take that, bring it over here, and there it is, and drop it right in the comment box, and I now have that quote. So every time, watch this. Okay, let's say the changes, we'll go to strategies. Every time we come back to time schedule, here's that quote. And I can actually go in here and say something like, great quote. Teachers are sometimes behind due to lack of time. Now I can also write a memo. You say, which one should I use? Which one do you want to use? Because basically I can also go over here and I can go to memos and I can attach a memo. Notice how it came up here? And I can title that memo anything I want to. time schedule. And then I can type, well, or something like, they may want to look at time schedule, or something like that. Whatever I want to type in here, I can put it here. Can I take that? I can also drag that quote in here. If I want to put that quote in here with a memo, oh, don't forget to hit the save button before you exit out a memo. Now, that memo will be permanently attached to this. So that basically, if I click on this, I can actually read my, well, what did I write there? Well, I can read it. Okay? So, I can also take a look at all of the memos that I have written. Okay? And I wrote a memo here. I wrote a memo here, overwhelming. I can also take those memos and I can create a diagram of it. So there's that memo right here. There was nothing in here, that's why I selected that one. But I can just take this, I can drag all of those memos in here. And then I can begin to take a look at the things I've written and begin to say, you know, overwhelming. Here's what the model's created a more collaborative schedule, but maybe I want to link. You know what though? It's really created an overwhelming schedule. And so I may want to say, you know, this is the initial reaction, new model, and I can begin to link ideas together and begin to look at my analysis. So you can do that with memos. I can also do it with codes. Somebody said, can I do this with codes? Absolutely. I can create what's called a network diagram. And here's a new network diagram. I'm going to call it frustration. And there's, so basically frustration is related to time schedule. It's related to being organized. Organized being part of a time schedule. I mean, I can drag and drop any of these things in here that I want to and create an analysis. By the way, if I think, well, time schedule is a part of being organized, you know what? I'm not sure though. Because the time schedule, maybe I just want to say, well, the time schedule is a property of being organized. Or whatever I put into. Okay? I can create whatever these links are that I want them to be because I'm in control of the analysis. The software just helps me to start to work through it. If I want to create themes, I can go to my code families. I'll open the family manager. It'd be nice to have just a family manager. Notice I have created a couple of them. I can create one, let's see, that's a grounded, by the way, if you're doing a grounded theory, look at this. Axial coding diagram. What's it look like? Well, it has all these things in it. Do I want a network diagram of it? There it is. I created it. But suppose we want one again, families. We want to create a new family. I'm going to call it frustration. Okay, so we've created a new family. Now we want to add some codes to it. So let's see, frustration again. Frustration maybe because of there's too much flexibility. I don't know. Frustration being organized. Things are overwhelming. That's enough. Now, by the way, that is now a family. So, I'd like to visualize that. Oh, okay. There it is. And by the way, there's a note I had written about frustration. CF, code family, frustration. All these terms are linked together to help us to understand frustration. The only problem with this, you see the red dotted line? If I want to do something depending on the links, by the way, unlinked nodes, I can't really edit the relationships very well with this because basically I have a code family. So I can edit the relationship, I can cut the links if I want to. But what I can't do I can only create this red link because Atlas basically sees all these as being just related in just one way. So when you draw a diagram of the family, there's a little less flexibility. And so what I usually try to do is draw it just with code. Now before we go, I'll just show you one thing. I can also code video. Or I could actually code an image. Here's an image here. Or student. Now, suppose that I'm really kind of looking at, what he's doing with his hands. Now, how in the world do I code this? I take my little box and I select a portion of this picture. And then what I do is I do a right-click coding, open coding, and we're going to call it messing with hair. Maybe I'm looking at some non-verbal things that people do when they get frustrated. They mess with their hair. That now becomes code. Okay? Now, let me go to my code list. So let me go to another document. Okay, so now we'll go to the text document, which you all, the text documents are. Where'd my code list go? Oh, yeah, there we go. So now, when I go with, watch what happens messing with hair. There it is. See it? Brings you right back to the picture you just selected. Just like it brings you back to text. The other thing that you can do, and I'll show you this and then we'll close.
Well, I hope everyone's doing well this week. We have, I think, a great week lined up. And we're going to get into the area of relationship development. Now, it's very important that we take a look at the
I'm now creating quotation
with relationship development. Those sort of help us understand why some relationships succeed, why others don't succeed.
All right, that's enough. I've now created a quote. How some relationships succeed. So basically, this is talking about relationship development. Okay. So now what I want to do is I've created now a quote. Okay. And what I can do, and I don't have time to show you all of how you do this. You can also bring down a little window here that you can even transcribe that section. So I go over here to quotes. I just created this, and there it is. Okay, coding, open coding, relationship, development. Okay. Now I have it. Let's just go to a new document. Okay. Now, flexibility, there's our quote. Here's messing with hair. What about relationship development?
Now, it's very
There's the video here.
important that we take a look
Atlas
at
always takes you back.
with relationship development. Those sort of
I can make a network diagram of video clips. And I can go back to the video clips and I can begin to look at them. Let me say one thing before we close on video. If you're going to use video, make sure that there's a reason why you're using video. Some people use video and say, oh, wouldn't it be great just to have video? My question is, what data are you going to get from video that you cannot get from just the transcription, text transcription alone? If you're doing things like looking at nonverbal communication, If you're doing discourse analysis or some kind of conversation analysis where you want to look at how people converse with each other and begin to use the video in that way, that's data that you can't get from just a transcription. But don't make the mistake of saying, oh, I think I'll just do a video of this rather than audio recording and transcribe. Video takes a huge hard drive. Probably somewhere around 2 megabytes a minute, at least. And that's in the small format. The one I just showed you is about 2 megs per minute. You usually have to do what's called compressive. And the Apple products, by the way, have better compression schemes than some of the PC products. And then there's a few little things that you have to do to bring a QuickTime movie in. And if you're interested in working with video, let me know, and we can sort of get together. I can sort of walk you through some of the things. But we're out of time. I appreciate all of your attention. Any questions you have on Atlas? Or have I answered everything you ever wanted to know? So, many thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. I think it was very helpful.